I often don't fully engage in stuff of what's taking place with me. I tend to focus on the news. But I've done videos recently on my own difficulties and struggles and things that have taken place within the context of my life, especially with what's going on now with the trip. It's making me to some degree reflective because, let's be honest, the trip is kind of difficult to pull off. Now, I do these videos though because I've come to the realization, especially with the response that I get, that the example matters. A person with renal failure that decides to travel the world with all the uncertainty that's associated with it, with all the costs that's associated with it, especially not having, or let's say having limited resources in order to pull it off, massively impractical. Never seen anybody do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it to the degree that I can do it. That example alone matters. And just based on the response that I get from some people, these videos don't get many views, but there are some people out there that look at this and appreciate this being talked about. So I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to try to make this video fast and try to do it in about 10 minutes. I want to talk about self-determination and illness in the context of illness. What do you want to do? I'm asking the question. Internalize the question. What do you want to do? You have a finite number of years. Everybody that you know, the cutest baby, the person who sings the greatest, the person who acts the greatest, at some point will drop dead. Their breath will cease, their cognitive functions will end, and their head would hit the cement, dead. Internalize that for the moment. We push that away. We try to ignore that fact. But that is fundamentally true. Now, within the context of that being flat fact true, that at some point your life on this plane of existence will flicker out. Knowing that, what do you want to do? Now, within the context of illness, you have doctors, you have nurses, you have parents, you have friends and people that are around you, all having their advice, all having things that they try to tell you to do because they realize that you're in a situation that is uniquely difficult. Your physical system itself has some anomaly that is broken, that doesn't quite work right, that you wake up in the morning and you are somehow different, or the body that you're using is somehow different than the body that the people around you are using. But still, it's your life. You choose. What do you want to do? You must hold on to this thing of self-determination. You must hold on and fight like hell to hold your shape in the face of people who believe they knew better of what is best for you in your particular life. Your doctor, your nurse, their responsibility here is to keep you alive. Your responsibility is to live. Full stop. The point of life is living. Yes, you can do each and everything that the doctors say. You can do each and everything that the nurse say. You can listen to the people around you. But at the end of the day, when you drop dead, was it your life? I am making this brimming point of self-determination, quality of life, being the thing that matters more so than just duration of years. I want to be a glowing ember. I want to rail against the night. When I drop dead, when my eyes close, I want to know that I was a burning star in the face of the darkness. Knowing full well that that darkness at some point is going to come, and that darkness is going to be resilient and trying to tear and rip me away, and I am still going to burn. That's what I want to do. And I'm going to choose. You're going to stand as a man in a sea of stars that don't care one iota. There is no God above, at least from the standpoint that we are fully aware of and we are certain of in this particular physical matter reality that's created a purpose for you in this life. This is your choice. You're radically free to choose. Within that radical freedom, there are constraints. Earlier today, I was here. Let me show. I nearly lost my life today. I was here. I tried to get closer and closer to the bottom part of the rocks. My phone stopped on me, and within a few seconds of my phone stopping on me, I got slashed by a wave and another wave. And I realized that the rocks were too slippery in order for me to have any level of footing at all to even stay there. And I was like, okay, time for me to leave. And then I realized, holy shit, how am I going to get from the rocks? How am I going to get from point A to point B? It is an exhilarating experience to have your life on the line where you're trying to do something like this. Oftentimes, through the course of our day, we eat our Cheerios, we go from point A to point B, all of these things being almost like recorded in. But there's something to be said about this particular thing where you make a choice. And in making that choice, you have to fight like hell in order to see your way through. There's nobody that can help you. You're left to your own devices. The thing is, the problem here, of course, is this thing of breathing. Water sweeping you away, driving you in the ocean, will end your physical system, just like it would end anybody's physical system, regardless. The best athlete in the world will still cease to exist if that person is underwater and gets swept away by the waves. It's constraint. It's a constraint that everyone has. And because it's a constraint that everyone has, we don't necessarily pay that much attention to it. I would present to you that your illness, the challenges of your physical system being broken, this body, this mortal coil, this avatar that we're grafted onto, just because you have a constraint and somebody else doesn't, it creates a relative distinction that you're uniquely aware of. So what? So what? Recklessness is going to cause a contraction of the decision space. And let's be very clear, God is in the spaces between action and consequence. Impartial, absolute justice, probability, uncaring. It just is. Making a choice doesn't necessarily mean there won't be a negative consequence from that choice. It's a choice as is, but it's your choice. You choose. It is your life. This is your physical system. Yes, there is a space between recklessness and between choices that may push the envelope. Pessimism is not a survival trait. By the same token, recklessness, especially if it breaks the physical system, is not necessarily the area you want to go. Between those two things, where can you push the envelope? What do you have of yourself to give? What is the thing that you want to do? And what are you willing to give? To get. This is not an issue of cash all the time. In this particular trip, I have limited resources. I want to go from point A to point B. And I want to go from place to place to place. And I want to see and experience and feel what it's like to be elsewhere. I want to understand other cultures to the degree that I can understand them. I want to be a bug on the wall, watching, observing, immersed in something else that is not from where I come from. That's what I want to do. That was my choice. Now, pursuant to that choice, I don't have infinite resources. And because I don't have infinite resources, the question becomes, what else do I have of myself to give in order to make this work? Burning choice. Now, the consequence of this is, in certain areas, I will not get the amount of treatment that I ideally would get. If I'm being honest, I never necessarily got all of the prescribed treatment that the doctor wanted, because that would utterly destroy any level of quality of life to do so. I got it to the degree that I needed. Here, I have to be cognizant that there is a certain amount that I require, that is my hard limit, in order to make this trip work. And pushing the envelope too far would end this trip, which would end the original point that I was trying to accomplish. Within the context of what is possible, what are you willing to give to get what you want? And how do you accomplish it? Are there ways? Are there things? So in my case, there's going to be gasp of breath going from Lisbon to Barcelona, because Barcelona is more expensive. Right off the bat, because it's more expensive, less treatments. Going from one place to the next in Poland. Poland is less expensive, is cheaper. So I would be able to get more in order to make up for what I was missing in Barcelona. By the same token, by the time I get to Berlin, the same situation will repeat itself where it will be a gasp of air, called in a gasp of air being treatments. In this case, it's the commodification of discomfort, of not being able to eat what I would typically eat, of constraining what I eat, maybe for a vegetarian diet, even though I hate a vegetarian diet, not being able to drink the amount that I would typically drink. Believe it or not, those things are difficult to do because everybody around you is doing something else, and you yourself have to make the personal determination that I will not do these things, because if I engage in the behavior that I would typically engage in, meaning drinking the amount that I would drink, eating the foods that I would drink, my physical system will suffer, and it may be the end of this trip and will ruin what I wanted to accomplish. My point in this is this. Everyone else has an idea on how you should live your life, but this is your life. They care about your longevity. You need to care about quality. It is your responsibility to care about quality of life. And that boils down to, what do I want to do first and foremost? What tools do I have at my disposal to pull that off? What are my hard limits? What are the areas to which I can push the envelope? That's your choice. Whether it's impractical, whether it causes discomfort, whether you suffer for it because you pushed the envelope too far. Those are things that you choose, and to some degree that you're stuck with this idea of accepting, but you accept it in the context that you chose. God is in the spaces between action and consequence. And action is completely tethered to choice. It is not their choice. And you will have to fight like hell, especially within the context of illness, to defend that choice, to own that choice. I used to be ashamed, if I'm being honest, I'm going a little bit over, but I used to be ashamed of having a broken body. For years, I used to be ashamed of this. Having this idea of, okay, how do I relate to women? How do I relate to other people? How do I relate to the job? How do I do all of these things that other people essentially take for granted, that they don't even think twice about? Those are things that you have to deal with. Those are things that you negotiate. At some point, I realized being ashamed was purely dealing with relative distance. The people around me have functioning bodies. Mine has a challenge. The distinction between those things, natural it can be, I lack something that other people have. That lacking, that being an individual, that being distinct, hitting the lotto in a grim way. I realized, though, that to some degree the shame thing was nonsense. It was utterly absurd to go that route and think that way, even though it was perfectly natural to come to that conclusion. It is also perfectly natural to come to the conclusion that I negotiate these constraints that other people don't have. I negotiate these challenges. And in the face of these challenges, I rail and I choose. I choose. Being ashamed is irrational. You face one challenge after the next, grafted upon you. It's not something that you can choose. It's something that was imposed in many respects upon your physical system. And you must push and bite and gnash your teeth and clench your fists in order to get from point A to point B, especially when it's something that creates more difficulty. The point I'm making here is, it is not something to be ashamed of. There's a certain degree of pride associated with being able to have a particular constraint, work beyond the constraints, and still exceed and accomplish what I want to get accomplished. That's also a choice. You can choose either. I would say between the two, pride is a little bit better. Now, granted, you don't have to feel any particular way about anything. You can look at it from the objective point of view of, this is just a challenge, this is a limitation, this is a constraint on the physical system, and I feel no way about it at all. But if you're going to feel any particular way about it, I would make the argument that prodigious pride. I accomplish this challenge every day just by waking up, just by getting out of bed, just by doing X. despite why. What do you want to do? And how do you do it? Not recklessness, but there's a little bit of leeway in between. Maybe it's not a trip around the world. Maybe it's something more local at home. Maybe it's something just to push the envelope in regards to where you are. But you are not a patient. You're a person with a challenge or a constraint. Never forget that. There's a remarkable difference in those things. Self-determination matters. Will matters. Choice and consequence. Everybody and their mama will drop dead one day. Quality matters. At least that's my position. I'll end it here. I think so.